Now, the Dáil Business Committee today was due to vote about new regulations for the prayer at the start of business every day. They've put off the vote until the 2nd of May to allow time for a debate. This followed a lot of lobbying from Atheist Ireland. We'll hear from Michael Healy Rae, the independent TD for Kerry, in just a few moments. But first, Michael Nugent, chairman of Atheist Ireland. What's your beef with this?
Well, first of all, it's wrong anyway what's happening at the moment, that our parliamentarians are expected to ask a specific Christian God to direct every word and action that they do. I mean, that's outrageous in a pluralist republic in the 21st century. Secondly, what they're doing at the moment is they're proposing to make things worse. What they're doing is they're making the TDs now stand during this ritual, which goes against your conscience and your freedom of religion and belief. They wouldn't dream of making people stand to listen to a reading from a Richard Dawkins book before they started every day, and there's no reason why they should do it with a religious one. And the third thing, which is most significant, is because it is the Ceann Comhairle who has to read this prayer, they're effectively creating a religious test to be Ceann Comhairle. If you're not a Christian, you can't be Ceann Comhairle, or at least if you're a conscientious non-Christian, you couldn't be Ceann Comhairle, because you're expected to read a prayer of a religion that you're not a member of and that you don't believe in. Now, they wouldn't dream of doing that to any other religion, and people would immediately realise it's inappropriate if Catholics were expected to read a Muslim prayer as part of their job. So, it's contrary to the Constitution that, you're not allowed to make distinctions or discriminations on the ground of religion or belief.
But we had census last week which suggested that 80%, just short of 80% of people still describe themselves as Catholic in this country. Other people describe themselves as Christian. So why shouldn't that vast majority not have their beliefs reflected in the start of the day's work in their parliament?
Well, they're perfectly welcome to say whatever prayers that they want to in their free time. They're perfectly prepared to say whatever prayers they want in their own minds while they're at work, if they want to distract themselves from what they should be doing there. But the Parliament itself should be respecting equally everybody's freedom of religion and belief, not just the majority. We recognised in Northern Ireland that it was wrong for a religious majority to impose their religious beliefs through the state, and it's similarly in the Republic of Ireland.
So you want the thing done away with entirely, the prayer, do you?
Yeah, there is absolutely no reason for the state to be involved in promoting either religion or atheism. As I say, we will be just as opposed to the state promoting atheism as we are to the state promoting religion. The only way to protect equally everybody's right to freedom of religion and belief is for the state to remain neutral.
Michael Healy Rae, independent TD for Kerry, good evening to you. Do you have any objections to the prayer being said at the start of every day's business in the Dáil?
Well, good evening, Matt and Michael, and to all your listeners. And I'm glad to get an opportunity to speak on this very important subject, because while I fully support Michael in that he's entitled to his opinion, of course he is, and the group of people that he represents, and more look to them. But the last time I checked, this was a Catholic country. And I can see absolutely nothing wrong whatsoever with us having to stand up, bless ourselves, say a quiet prayer to yourself or a reflective moment. I know that the 2 times that I was Mayor of Kerry, at the start of every council meeting, I started off with a prayer, because, there's times maybe that there's nothing wrong with a bit of prayer. And it's not that any of us are any holy Joes thumping our chests and running down to the front of the church. But at the same time, it's like the removal of religious artefacts from our hospitals. I was totally opposed to that at the time, because, when people are in trouble, they might be inside the hospital and it's a time of distress in their lives. And what's wrong with saying that, yes, we believe in God and we believe in religion and we believe in saying a prayer or a reflective thought? There is nothing wrong with it. And I just think that it's like a race to the bottom, saying, oh, look, remove the prayer from the start of the Dáil because it has no place there. Of course it has a place there. If it's a national parliament, people are doing their business, they're doing their work, and it's just acknowledging that there is something out there rather than just nothing. And I'm not one bit ashamed to say that I believe in God, and I believe that Ireland is better off being a Catholic country than being anything else. And having said that, I respect every religion that is in Ireland today. But at the same time, the majority are Catholics. It is a Catholic country, so I don't see why we shouldn't acknowledge that. It takes up maybe about 30 seconds at the beginning of proceedings, and I can see absolutely nothing whatsoever wrong with it.
But Michael Healy Rae, what about your colleagues who do not believe in God? Your colleagues who are atheists? Now, at present, they might be sitting there listening to this going on and saying, OK, we let that pass. But the idea that they would be asked to themselves stand and effectively participate in something that they don't believe in, is that appropriate?
It is. There's nothing in the world wrong with it, and I'll tell you why. If they don't believe in God, that's their own business. Can't they stand up? There's one thing that I know they do believe in. Every single solitary one of them. They all believe and remember that they've lost people over their lifetimes. When they're standing up and when they bless themselves, can't they think of their departed family and friends, and can't they have a reflective moment of thought for themselves? Surely be to God, there is nothing wrong with suggesting that they do that with their 30 seconds. You're not asking them to say 5 decades of the rosary or anything. We're not asking them to do an act of contrition or anything. You know, we're not asking them to go to confession. There is nothing in the world wrong with asking people to bless themselves and think for a moment or two, and that's all it is. And what I would call it, Matt, and I really mean this, it's the race to the absolute bottom. If people think that, oh, well, we should stop people of starting their work by saying a quiet prayer and blessing themselves, and in the majority of the people's views, they're paying respect to God because they believe in God, because they're Catholics, and there is nothing to be ashamed of in saying that.
Michael Nugent.
Well, Michael, you said that the last time you checked this was a Catholic country, so I assume that means that the last time you checked was in the 1960s, which was before we removed the special position of the Catholic Church from the Constitution. Since then, Ireland has not been a Catholic country. Ireland is an increasingly pluralist country with people from different religions and beliefs and none. And our Parliament has a particular function. Our Parliament isn't there to reflect the personal views or interests of individuals. It's there to serve the interests of everybody neutrally. It's not there to say prayers, just as it's not there to vote for celebrity candidates on TV, celebrity shows. Now, you were saying about the people standing up to remember their dead relatives, and I think that's a very important point, but from a different perspective than I suspect you do. My wife died a few years ago, and she donated her body to the Dublin medical schools. And when they were burying her body after she had donated it to science, we discovered that the Dublin medical schools, similar to the Oireachtas at the moment, had one headstone that had a religious message on it, and that everybody that was buried there was buried under a religious message. Now, we asked them to change that to something more inclusive that would be reflective of everybody, and they did. Thankfully, the Dublin medical schools are more progressive than the Oireachtas seems to be at the moment, and I would hope that the Oireachtas will follow the example of that and reflect everybody's views in a way that nobody needs feel excluded because of their religious or non-religious beliefs. And finally, I would ask you, Michael, if hypothetically you rose to the august position of being Count Ceorla of the Oireachtas, and you had that responsibility, would you want to be forced to start your day by reading a prayer of a religion that you don't believe in? I know you're obviously happy with the Catholic one, but if hypothetically it was a Protestant one or a Muslim one, would you be comfortable reading a prayer of another religion that you don't believe in as part of your job?
Right. Well, to answer your question, first of all, you forgot one thing that I said to you at the beginning of this interview, and that was I said that you were perfectly and rightfully entitled, and the group you represent, to your view and to your opinion on this subject, right? So that's the most important thing, to get that out of the way. I'm friends with people from many, many different religions. I represent them politically. I do their work for them, and I assist them in every way that I possibly can. And they also respect where I come from. And I'm not trying to force religion or my views down anybody's throats. Absolutely not. But I can see no sense whatsoever in your call for doing away with a tradition that has been there for years and years. There is nothing wrong with it. It
was a tradition that was imposed on us by the British initially. It came from the Westminster parliamentary tradition from back in the 1500s, and but even they have moved on beyond that. Even what they do is, at least their prayer is said in private. They do it and they don't let the public in before the prayer is over, and they respect that it's something private. And it's said by a chaplain, it's not said by an elected person as part of his job. Now, all those things that you're saying about the jobs that you do, and I appreciate that you do those work. You also do work like this radio interview with Matt here. None of us, other than the fact we happen to be discussing this, care about what our beliefs are for the purpose of doing this job. We didn't have to start this radio interview by saying a prayer. When you're meeting your constituents, you don't start by saying a prayer. There's no reason why you should do the same, and that part of your job that represents everybody.
Indeed, Michael Healy Rae, lots of people are texting in and saying, we don't have to say a prayer at the start of work every day. Why should Dáil Éireann have a prayer for the big commencement of its business?
Well, why did I, when I was Mayor of Kerry, on 2 occasions, introduce the fact of saying a prayer? Because I just thought it was a nice thing to do. I thought there was absolutely nothing wrong with it. None of my colleagues on Kerry County Council at that time saw anything wrong with it. The management of the council saw nothing wrong with it. And I actually think it would be a very nice thing for local authorities to do around the country, because it would be a good way to start off a monthly meeting of a local authority by saying a very simple, straightforward prayer. I could see nothing wrong.
Can I put another hypothetical to you? Say, just for example, that this country was to elect a couple of Muslim TDs. Yes. And what if they then started saying, well, if you're having your Christian prayer at the start, we demand that there would be time given that we can take out our prayer mats in the chamber and have prayers on a certain number of times a day like they have in Muslim countries. Now, what would you say to that then?
There's an answer to that. You could include everybody by, during the beginning of the first prayer, whatever religion a person was, that they would pray to their own God or to whatever they believed in during their reflective time. And as what was actually proposed at the Order of Business meeting this morning, the committee meeting, was that there would be a 30-second reflective moment for people to pray to whatever they believed in.
Yeah, but Michael, that's giving privilege to Christianity, because what that is doing is saying that the Christians get their prayer said out loud and publicly, whereas everybody else has to be private and secret about their beliefs. But you wouldn't like that the other way around. You wouldn't like if we said, well, we're going to start the Oireachtas by reading a bit from Richard Dawkins, and then the Christians can quietly reflect on their beliefs, even though they don't agree with it. And again, you said at the start, Michael, that you respect my right to not believe in God.
100%.
But you don't respect my right to become Ceann Comhairle. Because if I became Ceann Comhairle, I would be forced to read a prayer that is against my conscience.
Well, you know, the answer to that's like finding a solution for a problem that you don't have yet. We can cross that bridge if the situation ever arises.
Well, there are plenty of atheists in the Dáil at the moment that may end up being Ceann Comhairle.
Well, they very well may, and you know, the right thing we'll do is we'll get over that bridge when we come to it, and when we'll have that problem, we'll address it.
And how would you address it when it does arise? Would you remove it at that stage?
I have enough problems to deal with at the moment that are right now not to be making up ones for the future. But what I would say to you, and my late mother always said this, you're talking about what other people did in other countries and the way they changed and the way they went on, as you say, moved on. My mother always said, if the rest of them jumped in the lake, will you do it as well? We have to have common sense here, and we have to be practical and sensible about it. There is nothing wrong with the practice at present. The majority of people in Ireland, I believe, would agree with that.
Okay.
And I think that's the way to leave it.
It's a fairly big split amongst last word listeners texting into 53102 here today, if I'm present. I was going to very last point to you, Michael Nugent, because one listener, Brendan, says, I don't normally agree with Michael Healy Rae, but I do in this because it's about national identity. And lots of people are saying this is a Christian country, this is a Catholic country, this is part of what we are and we need to defend it. Indeed, others are saying, like we should have defended the crucifixes in our hospitals that was referred to by Michael Healy Rae earlier.
Well, again, there's similarly people who last checked whether it's a Catholic country before the 1960s. It's not a Catholic country. It's a pluralist country. The last census has reinforced that. And inevitably, this is going to change. It's just a matter of time. But ultimately, the practice of pretending that it's a Catholic country isn't sustainable in the long term.
Thank you very much. Michael Nugent from Atheist Ireland, Michael Healy Rae from Independent TD for Kerry. And another listener says, we're a Christian country, adapt to our way or get out. including the chap in the station. I don't know whether that's Michael Nugent or it's me. Anyway, we'll move on, and we'll be coming back with Tech Tuesday and looking at consumer warranties on all your tech goods and whether they're worthwhile. That's after this.